Hey, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Stacy, and I'm a bookseller and the events coordinator at Belmont Books. Belmont Books, for those of you who are not familiar with us, is an independent and locally owned bookstore in Belmont, Massachusetts. Before we begin, I'd like to let you know that we have a number of virtual events coming up, including Maggie Takuda Hall on July 2nd and Angie Kim and Lisa Gornick on July 8th. I'm sorry, I just lost my place. You can register for these and our other events on our website, belmontbooks.com, which is also where you can purchase Martha and Sarah's books, and I'll be sending out the link for that. A reminder to please keep your audio and video off for the duration of the event. If you have any questions, you can send them to me, the host, via chat, and I will relay as many of those as possible to Martha and Sarah after the presentation. Just so you know, this event will be recorded. We're very excited to welcome Martha and Sarah. I want to tell you a little bit about them, and then I will turn the event over to them. And I should also introduce Sophie, who's here. Everybody say hi, Sophie. Okay. Martha Waters is the author of To Have and to Hoax. Her lifelong love of England and romantic comedies inspired the writing of To Have and to Hoax, which is her first novel. Martha was born and raised in South Florida and is a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She works as a children's librarian in North Carolina and loves sundresses, gin cocktails, and traveling. Sarah Hogle is a stay-at-home mom of 3 in Southern Ohio. She spends her free time planning weird pranks. Her dream is to live in a falling apart castle in a forest that is probably cursed. You Deserve Each Other is her debut novel. Martha and Sarah's books are both romantic comedies that involve pranks and manipulation and show the fine line between love and hate and how easily relationships can cycle between the two. And without further ado, I will turn the event over to Martha and Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Sarah, you like already win because you have a baby. I don't have anything to like parade on camera.
Look at my baby.
She's so cute. I mean, I can get my cat, but like my cat is not as cute as a baby. So
no, get your cat.
I mean, she will not sit happily on my lap like your baby will. So it would not go as well. Do you think we should start by sort of each doing like this spiel for our book for people who might not be familiar with them? Sort of on quick elevator pitches maybe, and then we can sort of dive into chatting.
Sure.
Frankie. Okay, I can go first. So To Have and to Hoax is a Regency rom-com, and it's about a married couple named Violet and James who get married when they're really, really young, even by Regency England standards, and get into a big fight 1 year into their marriage and basically haven't been on speaking terms ever since. And so when the book starts, James is in a riding accident and Violet like rushes to be by his side only to find that he's totally fine and is mad that she showed up. So she decides to get revenge by pretending to be dying of consumption. So as one does. And he quickly sees through this plan because it's a really terrible plan, but instead of maturely calling her out on this, he plays along, and so it becomes a sort of escalating battle of one-upsmanship. They're basically like playing chicken with each other to try to get the other one to admit that they know that they're lying. I've been calling it the Regency England version of the they don't know, we know, they know, we know episode of Friends. So that's basically To Have and to Hoax.
Aw, you're really good at elevator pitches.
Thank you. Well, I've gotten a lot of practice over the past few months.
Okay. I wrote You Deserve Each Other. And it is about an engaged couple, Nicholas and Naomi, and they have fallen out of love, but neither of them wants to pay for the cost of a broken wedding. So they decide they're going to prank each other and try to get the other one to call it off, but in the process they fall back in love.
Spoiler alert.
That's the best I got for my elevator pitch.
So the thing I love is the fact that our books are basically like my book is like the historical equivalent of your book. Like the premises are weirdly similar, I would say.
You're,
And
you're Naomi's great-great-grandparents.
exactly.
Violet and
Yes.
James.
Exactly.
They're related.
Yes, they exist in the same fictional universe. Someone further down the line like immigrates to America, and
Yes.
yeah, that's totally what happens. And for those of you who don't know, our books actually came out on the exact same day, even, and they were both our debuts. So it's sort of a weird lovers to enemies to lovers prank books, both released at the same time.
I love that coincidence.
I do too, and I really love your book a lot. And
I love your book a lot.
So I think we should talk about pranks, because that is something that plays a big role in both of our books. So I have to ask you, do you like playing pranks on your husband or on anyone else in your life?
I mean, I do, but I've gotten soft in my old age. I haven't been evil to anybody in a while.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
I know, it's been a fail. What about you? Have you destroyed anybody's life?
I mean, well, not lately, since I'm confined to my home alone, since I'm alone. But I think I've told you the story, but my coworkers and I are engaged, not at the moment, but in the before times, we're engaged in a lengthy prank war where we were passing an elf on the shelf back and forth to each other, and trying to hide it in creative places. So I got it inside and a box of popsicles in our work freezer, where my coworker went to go open the box of popsicles. There was an elf on the shelf staring at her, and they got it in the ceiling tile above my desk one day. So I came into work and I looked up and it was just staring down at me. But the win, which I'm the loser in this case, was when I went on vacation and they watched my cat for me. And when I came home from vacation, I was unpacking and I'd been home for several hours, and I was walking across my living room, my tracks, and I looked up and there was an elf on the shelf sitting on top of my AC unit, just staring down at me. It was
love that.
No, it was horrifying. Those things look cute, but they're very unblinking, and I do not recommend being alone in your house and then looking up and meeting the unblinking gaze of an elf on the shelf. It was very disturbing.
I mean, if you're going to be a demon and you're looking for something to inhabit, you'd probably want to be the elf on the shelf.
I mean, yeah, actually.
What?
Oh my god, so cute. So where did you come up with the idea for your book?
Oh Lord. I did it. It just happened. I sat down to write about a woman who's really sick of her boyfriend. She's had enough of his crap. She's gonna leave, and she's gonna find love with one of her coworkers named Leon. And then it didn't happen. The story just wasn't working out that way. And yeah, she ended up with the other dude, Nicholas.
He was so dreamy. I love him so much.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just like, da, 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 da. And then it came out.
But you definitely knew you wanted to write a rom-com. Is that all you kind of wanted to write, or?
I didn't know it was gonna be a rom-com. I didn't plan it at all. Jeez, why? Yeah, I was just messing around.
Yeah.
And then I got to the part where I realized that Naomi was going to stay with Nicholas, and I just thought, well, what can I do that will be the most fun for me? And that would be making the other person really miserable. So I thought to myself, okay, if I had no restraint and I could just let that free, what kind of terrible things would I have fun doing?
It's wish fulfillment for you, basically.
So I was just really excited over on my computer being evil.
Well,
What about you?
Well, mine is based on a long-time joke I have with my friends about consumption being the most romantic way to die. So
yeah, you told me about that.
Whenever anyone asks me what the inspiration for my book was, if the characters came first, or I knew I wanted to write a Regency, or the plot came first, I have to answer very honestly that the fake consumption came before the characters, or anything else about the book. I knew I wanted to write a book where someone had a fake case of consumption because of this really dumb inside joke I have with everyone in my life. And from that point, it kind of made sense for it to like be a married couple, because like, why would you say something to someone like you weren't married to? And so it kind of came this whole idea of like they were fighting, and but the consumption came first. But I feel like that's the fun thing about writing a debut. Like,
Hold on, just 1 second.
I feel like I should get my cat for entertaining everyone. Papa, do you want to come be on camera too? You're not as cute as a baby. I feel like I should like be doing a song and dance until Sarah comes back. Well, while we're waiting for Sarah to come back, I can keep talking because I'm really good at talking. I was also inspired by that Friends episode that I mentioned, the They Don't Know, We Know, They Know, We Know. I think it's the actual title of that episode is the one where everyone finds out. But when I started writing the book and got further into it, I realized that was kind of similar to that Friends episode. So I really sort of leaned into that. Hello! I'm just over here like talking to the internet by myself.
The baby is gone.
I know, like, should I go get the cat? Like, if the baby's leaving, do we need the cat now?
Yeah, bring out the cat.
But yeah, I feel like the fun thing about writing a debut is that you're like not under as much pressure. So like you can kind of just write whatever weird thing you want to write and have fun with it. I really love reading people's debut novels because I feel like it tells you a lot about the person writing it, kind of, because it's all these things they kind of had stewing in their head for a while, like now they're getting out onto paper. So
yeah.
Okay, what else to talk about? We're so good at this.
I know. Okay, we got a question over here. What's your favorite prank, either that has been played on you or that you played on someone? Don't forget to send any questions you have for either or both the authors.
I did not know how to make the chat appear. Now I see. This is very exciting.
Okay, well, I have one.
Yes.
For my father, for Father's Day a few years ago, I got like a really huge poster board, and I printed out a ton of pictures of me and my brothers and my family, and I just copied and pasted my face over everybody's faces. So it's just a whole bunch of pictures of me. And when I gave it to him, there was a moment where he was like, "Oh, this is nice," and then just closed her head. It was like, "Oh, it's just Sarah everywhere."
I mean, the most important person in the family, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not on his wall.
Very nice. It's like a mystery to me. Yeah, other than my Elf on the Shelf one, another coworker and I had a prank war for a while where there's this very disturbing, it's not supposed to be disturbing, but I find it disturbing. I'm a children's librarian is like the context to this. There's this very disturbing picture book for children called Dad's Bald Head, which is all about like a kid whose dad like is going bald, and I don't really know why this book exists, but sure, whatever. But we found it very uncomfortable because it had weird sexual undertones to me in ways that made me very uncomfortable. And so we had weeded it from our like library collection because no one was checking it out. It was weird. So my coworker, he and I started passing it back and forth to each other, much like with the Elf on the Shelf. That was a different coworker. And it got like increasingly elaborate. Like I made like 50 copies, like photocopies of the cover, and like plastered them all over his car. And he showed up at my house one time when I was at work and gave it to my roommate, who put it under the pillow of my bed, and I slept the whole night with it under my pillow. And I woke up the next morning to reach under my pillow for my phone, and I felt like a book, and I was like, what the hell is happening? And I pulled back my pillow, and the cover of this horrifying picture book was staring at me. The worst thing about all my prank wars is that like I'm never the person, like I feel like I have some good ones, but I'm never the person who has like the grand finale of the prank war. Like I never am like the absolute best one, which is a source of much angst for me, I'm not gonna lie.
I love how they all like go into your house.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's very creepy. This is like what happens when you live really close to where you work. Like I walk to work every day, so like all my coworkers have been to my house and go there when I'm not there and leave creepy things there for me. It's very disturbing. Like I should probably complain to someone about this, but I usually start it, so I can't complain that much. Let's see. Oh, how much of your book plot / outline did you have when you did you have done when you got your proposal approved, or did you have the book already written before you got a book deal? So ours were both debuts. So usually with debuts, you actually have the whole manuscript complete for fiction. Because you can't like get an agent otherwise, basically.
Yeah.
For like once you've published one book, it's a little different. Was your deal a 1-book deal or a 2-book deal, Sarah?
2.
2. So mine was a 1-book deal, but I've since, like before my first one even came out, we sold the second book, which is like a companion to Heaven to Hoax. And so with that one, I only sent like the first 4 chapters of it to my editor, and she made an offer for it based just on those 4 chapters. So once you've already published one book, like you can get away with not having a complete manuscript. You can get a book deal, but for the first one, like no, you just gotta write the whole book before anyone's gonna publish, because they have no idea if you're any good or not.
Right. I'm gonna make you yell because I'm a little bit hard of hearing, and that thing wasn't cutting it, and this is cutting it. So just yell at me.
Cool. I'm very loud, so this is like not a problem for me. So you have another. You're working on a second book now, right? Or are you done with the second book?
I'm done with the first draft of it. I think we'll be editing it sometime soon. Mm-hmm. It's not quite as rom-com-y, but it is a romance, and it should come out in April of next year.
Is it same universe, or is it like totally separate?
I think it's totally separate. I don't think I added. I might have put in some kind of Easter egg. I don't think I did, though. I think it's separate.
Yeah, my book too is like, people keep asking if it's a sequel, and it's like not quite. I mean, it works as a sequel if you've read To Heaven to Hoax. It's about minor characters from To Heaven to Hoax. But
which ones are they again?
Diana and Jeremy, the best friends who always fight.
Yes.
There's a lot of minor characters.
I'm so excited to read it.
Thank you. But yeah, like if you hadn't read To Heaven to Hoax, you would still be able to read the second one, which is called To Love and to Loathe, which I am revising right now and have to turn in on Friday, so I'm a little stressed out, but it's fine.
Congratulations, though.
Congratulate me on Friday. Right now, I'm just like,
okay. Yeah.
Let's see. Ooh, what inspired you both to finally take the plunge and write your first novel? Sarah?
I was just derping around. I don't know. I was just having fun.
Was it like the first, like, have you written other novels that didn't get published?
Oh, yeah.
The first attempt?
Like, that was the third I'd written that year. I just, always wanting to be working on something. And I didn't. I was really surprised that it actually made it.
Same. Yeah, I think I had written 2 complete novels that I hadn't gotten an agent for, and one like half of a book that I had gave up on halfway through because it just wasn't working. So I feel like there are not that many authors whose debut novel is actually the first novel they've written, because writing a novel is hard, spoiler alert. So you kind of need practice. But I was the same, like I kind of didn't think anyone was going to publish it, because so my thing is that Violet and James were always 2 of my favorite baby names, so I used the names for my characters because I really like the names, because it literally never occurred to me that someone would actually publish my book. And then it was like I got an agent, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. And then I got a book deal, and I was like, I guess I can't name any future children I have after the main characters in my romance novel. Like, that was dumb. So
they're such lovely names, though.
I really love old-fashioned names. So now I've like made a rule for myself. I'm like, until I know for sure whether I'm having kids or not, like I can't use any more names off of my baby names list.
That's what I'm doing, though. Is like the names that my husband wouldn't let me use, like they all go on the list now. I use them for characters.
See, that's smart. I'm just like, I haven't had any kids yet. What if I decide I want to have a baby? I can't have little baby James. I don't care about Violet so much because I have a lot of girl names. I don't have that many boy names that I like. Honestly, I'm like, we cannot go recklessly use
boy names.
Yeah, so that was foolish. But it just like, it sounds insane. People were like, well, why would you write a book if you didn't think anyone would publish it someday? And I'm like, because I've just always wanted to write. And so I'm kind of always just writing something. And yeah, the goal was to be published someday, but like each time I started a book, I didn't necessarily think this is going to be the one that actually gets published. So
like you hope, but you don't really think that it feels outside of reality.
Yeah. Has anyone asked you since you got published, like, oh, are you surprised? Or because people have asked me that, and I always feel like yes and no at the same time, because I've been wanting to do this my whole life, and so in some way I don't feel surprised, because child me, if I went back in time, and
I deserve this.
Yeah, like 7-year-old me would be like, well, yeah, of course you published a book. Like, I know that's what I want to do. So in that sense, like, no, I'm not surprised. But in the other sense, like when you look at the statistics of like how many submissions like an agent get, like how many queries a literary agent gets like a year, and how many they actually like offer on it, and how many submissions an editor gets, and it's just like the odds seem so stacked against you that like it also seems very surreal to get a book deal. So like
it freaks me out to see that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was like a total like idiot when I was trying to get a literary agent. Like I wasn't really, I mean, like I had a Twitter, but I wasn't really on Twitter much. I didn't really engage with like the book community very much. So I didn't fully like see all the numbers about like your odds of getting an agent and like all this stuff. But I had never like I didn't know anything about pitch wars or any of this sort of like Twitter pitching things they do, which I think might be for the best. Because I think it would have really intimidated me seeing how many like amazing, like really talented authors are out there who don't have agents yet. I think I would have freaked me out. Yeah. Well, it's just like these people, like you read their pitches and it's like, holy crap, that's a really good idea. Like my idea isn't this good. I would have just like gone home and like crawled under my bed and cried. So it's probably for the best, honestly. Okay. How do I get the chat back? Chat.
What was the book, poem, etc. that made you go, yes, this is something I want to do? Also, what book made you fall in love with rom-com stories?
I don't know what made me think, like what actually inspired me to want to like write. Like that feels so far back to me that I honestly can't remember it. How about you?
I was 5. So it's a whole life thing.
Yeah, same. Like I found my writing journal from the 1st grade last fall. Like, and it's like has a little like note at the beginning that's like, my name is Martha Waters. I want to be a writer when I grow up. So that it honestly, like, I don't remember what made me want to write. It's like as soon as I started being able to read myself and I realized that there was someone writing those books, like I wanted to be the person doing that. But in terms of rom-coms, that's been a more recent thing for me, because I didn't read romance like as a teenager or anything, or even in college. I only came to it when I was like in my 20s, when I was in grad school to become a librarian, and we took a popular materials class where we like read a book from a different genre each week. So we did romance one week, and since I love England, spoiler alert, I read one of Julia Quinn's Regency romances, which were like really, really funny and charming. And I was like instantly hooked and read her like entire 20-year backlist in the course of like 2 or 3 months, and then just like did this deep dive into other like funny historical romances. And then when like sort of contemporary rom-coms became so popular the past few years, I just started like inhaling a bunch of those as well. So, and then it kind of became like, well, I was reading so many of them, and I'd kind of finished my most recent writing project. So when I thought about what I wanted to try writing next, like it makes sense to kind of write what you've been reading a lot of lately. So I was like, I'm gonna write a rom-com, and that's what I did. What about you?
Well, I'd always written like young adult fantasy. I'm really into fantasy. But I was watching a lot of Hallmark movies, and I'm like, it's a warm and fuzzy. I like this. Maybe I could write this. And I looked through the digital library, and I found, I don't remember what it was called, but it was a series. It was a small town romance. And I thought, oh, this is so cute. And this was only a few years ago. I haven't been reading it that long. And then I just, 100 books later, I thought, I'm going to write one. And then I wrote another one, and then another one, and a whole bunch of failures, and then I got this one.
I feel like there's so many people, though, like once they just like discover romance, no matter like at what point, like some people it's when they're a lot younger, some people it's not till they're like in their 20s or 30s or whatever. But once they discover the genre, they read so much of it at once. Like you just dive in, because I don't know, I just got totally addicted. Like the knowledge that the book is going to end happily every single time is so incredibly comforting. I was just like, I want to read 5,000 of these, so I did.
Yeah, you need to like You don't even look at the titles anymore. You just start reading them.
Yeah, well, so you have like auto read authors, which isn't true in a lot of genres that I like. Like some, I feel like other genres it's a little like iffier. Like you might have liked some of an author's previous stuff, maybe you won't like the next one. Whereas with romance, for me, it's like if I've read a few of an author's books and I liked them all, like they're pretty much a safe bet. Like I can just keep reading them forever and feel pretty certain that I'm going to like everything they write, which I also find
The same tropes over and over and over. And it's like, yeah, I want more of that. I'll never get tired of it.
Exactly. It's just so comforting.
Yes. Always the happily ever after. It's a warm and fuzzy genre. I like
This
it.
is why it's so annoying when people call things like Nicholas Sparks romance. So it's like, romance? And it doesn't end happily. If someone gets cancer and dies, like that is not a romance. It has to end happily.
Yeah. I feel tricked when I read a book and it's sad. I'm not here for that.
A friend of mine recently read, I felt really bad. I don't know, like this is a really popular book. I think she should have known that it wasn't like a romance novel with the happily ever after, but she's just, a casual reader who has not read much romance. So truly thought this was going to have a happy ending. She read Me Before You by Georgia Lloyd, which is like one of those, like, I mean, I haven't read it, but I feel like that was pretty famously sad, but she honestly had no idea, and she's been going through kind of like a rough time with work lately, so she specifically had picked something she thought was a romance with a happy ending because she wanted to feel like warm and fuzzy. So she's texting me at like 11 o'clock at night, literally crying because she's like, I just wanted something with a happy ending. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but also like I would have warned you if you had told me you were gonna read that book.
I looked that one up because I wasn't going to read it beforehand if it was sad. I can't take anything. I'm a huge coward. Like, on Twitter, I'll see comments like, this book is great. It made me cry so much. I'm like, I can't deal with that. I'm too weak.
No, I don't want to cry. I hate feelings. Feelings are the worst. I like happy feelings. Let's see. Oh, more questions. Ooh, what are you each reading now? What are you reading?
What am I reading? I got a pile behind me. I just finished Intercepted by Alexa Martin.
Oh, I've read that one.
I'm getting ready to start Last King Standing.
I just read that last week.
What, you read it?
Yeah, I read it last week.
Rude.
It's very funny. You'll like it. Like the like voice is very, very funny.
I'm excited.
Yeah, you should be. I really enjoyed that one. I just read, like I finished reading this morning before work when I should have been working on revisions because I have to turn in a book in like 3 days. I just read The Roommate by Rosie Danon, which you also read recently, didn't you?
I read that like a week ago.
Yeah, so this one is a debut that comes out in September from Berkeley, and it is I think everyone's going to be hearing a lot about it. It's already getting a lot of buzz, and it's like completely deserved because it's delightful. It's about an art historian who moves to LA for this dude that she's like been in love with since like high school, who then like ups and leaves to spend the summer with his band and so sublets out his room to some stranger who turns out to be a porn star, and it is amazing. It's so good.
Sarah and Josh are very cute together.
They're very cute. I was messaging Rosie about it like the whole time I was reading. I was like, I was expecting it to be pretty sexy, which it is, like given the premise, like you expect that. But I was not expecting like how wholesome it was. I found it extremely wholesome and sort of like tender. Like I don't know, it's really great. Like it's very sexy, but it's also just very emotional, and they're just so great. You just want them to be happy.
You know the diner scene when they're in the diner? I was like,
yeah, it's so
Which
good.
sounds really obnoxious for me to say that. Like, you know about this book that hasn't come out yet. This scene, I really love it. But
yeah, no, everyone, you should go ahead and pre-order this one. It comes, I think it's like September 15th or sometime around then, but it's The Roommate by Rosie Danon, and it's one of my favorite things I've read this year.
Very unique.
Yeah, it is.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I also, did you finish it wanting Naomi to have her own book? Because I was like, Naomi needs a book like right now, like the Josh X. I was just like, Rosie, are you writing a book for her? Which she is, so that'll be the next one. So I'm very excited. But
that's what I thought she was doing.
Yeah, she is. She's editing it right now. So I'm excited. Yeah, that's been a good revisions distraction for me this week. I mean, like maybe bad because I should have been working, but I just wanted to read that book instead, so I did. Oh yeah, Puffin. Oh Jesus Christ, Puffin. Okay. Well, we're just gonna ignore her and carry on. Inspired by Martha's remark, what are some of your auto read authors that you love and will read anything from? God, so many. Who's on your list?
Tessa Bailey.
You know, I've never read a Tessa Bailey book.
She
I've
has
heard they're really, really
80
good.
books and they're all brilliant.
Yeah, I've heard such good things.
What do I got over here?
I don't know. I want to check out Kate Claiborne's other books because I really love lettering, but I haven't read anything else yet.
I love lettering. That book is brilliant. I don't even know if it's my favorite of hers. Like, it's impossible to choose, but yeah, her original, that Chance of a Lifetime trilogy,
Heard about that.
oh God, they're so good. Like I hate feelings. I don't cry. Every single one of her books makes me cry at some point. Like, yeah,
I'm
so
afraid
good.
of emotions.
And you can just tell, like, she's one of those authors that you read and you can, like, it makes you feel bad about yourself as a writer because you can just tell how much thought she puts into every single word. Like, it really, like, blows my mind every time I read one of her books. But the second one in that original trilogy, which is Luck of the Draw, they all have like luck in the title. I think Luck of the Draw is the second one. You have to read them. They're so good. Oh my God, I love them so much.
I wanted to throw love lettering across the room because the writing is so good. It's like, what's the point? I'm retiring now.
I know. She, like, makes me glad. This doesn't help you, but for me, it makes me glad that I don't write contemporaries because I feel like I would just compare myself to her. I read her books and I'm like, oh, thank God I write historical because, like, I can't do this. But I do have, like, a lot of historical authors that are, like, auto reads for me, like anything by Julia Quinn or Eloisa James or Sarah McLean, who has a new book out today, Daring and the Duke, which I read in an advanced copy of, which is,
I've heard a lot of things about that one.
It's so good. So my thing with her, I love all of her books. They, like, I would say her banter is amazing. Her books in general are maybe a little darker than what I tend to gravitate towards in my romance because there's a lot of, like, brooding and angst, which is not really normally what I like to read, but I'm obsessed with all of her books. And my thing with her is that in every series that she's written so far, the final book in the series ends up being my favorite one in the series. And so Daring and the Duke is the third in a trilogy. And it, again, is my favorite book in the trilogy. It's held true for every series she's written so far. It's just, oh, it's so good. So I will read anything that she writes. So that book is, like, all over Twitter right now because everyone is reading it and freaking out, but as they should.
I read the first one in that series. I think it was the first one with the beast. I have never remembered the title.
The first one is Wicked and the Wallflower. Has, like, the pink cover, and then Brazen and the Beast has the blue cover. It's the second one.
I think I read the first one, but I can't remember. They all blur. I'm so bad at it. Like, I know that I read a book, but I don't know the title, and I can't tell you what the characters are called.
Those ones, it helps that, like, the color, like, in her current trilogy, like, the color scheme comes through really clearly on the cover. It's like there's the pink one and the blue one and the yellow one, which is how I keep them straight in my head. Because I'm really bad with romance titles because I feel like romance titles have, like, 20, or, like, a set vocabulary of, like, 20 words, like rogue, duke, beast, like scandal, like, and just they rotate some combination of those words, like, just for every romance book. So I'm truly horrendous at remembering the titles of books. Even if I remember, like, everything about what happened in it, I'm just like, I don't know what it's called. I can tell you who wrote it, but I have no idea what this book is called. But yeah, so auto read authors for me would be, Sarah McLean, Julia Quinn, Eloisa James, Loretta Chase. And then for more contemporary stuff, I really love Kate Claiborne, as we talked about. I really love Lucy Parker. Have you read her books?
No.
She's like a 5-book series set in, like, the London theater world, and the first one's called Act Like It, and those might be my favorite contemporary romances of all time. They're like, I describe them to people as, like, the equivalent of, like, an old, like, 1940s movie with just, like, all the banter, but, like, put in the modern day, because just, like, the dialogue is, like, off the charts good. It's so smart and, like, fast, and she writes a really good version of the like grumpy one and sunshine one trope. Like I feel like that's oftentimes the dynamic with her couples, and they're so I truly like, I think she's a genius and everything she writes is perfect. And she has a new series coming out with Avon starting next year, I think, of like about people who are like royal adjacent, so like not actual royalty, but like a chef and like the royal kitchens and things like that. So it should be really fun. But yeah, if anyone hasn't read Lucy Parker, if you love romance, you should read her because I think she's perfect. Not to oversell it or anything, but.
And then, like, it's not contemporary romance, but I really love Holly Black, the queen of.
Oh yes, she's amazing.
It took me like 5 months to read this because COVID happened and I was really unable to read anything for a long time. But I finally finished it, and it was such a good book.
Same. I definitely like March and April. I had like it was kind of how I felt after the 2016 election also, where I just like couldn't read anything for weeks because I just like my brain like did not have the ability that it normally has to sort of ignore the real world and just like focus on a book. I was like totally lost that ability. I've gotten it back now because I guess I've decided that our current reality is like my life now, and I just hang out in my house a lot. So I've gotten used to it, so I'm able to read more now, which I guess is good, although I also feel sad for myself. But like I don't want to be used to this, but I guess I am now, so at least I can read some good books.
Yeah, I was like trying a new book every couple of days, and I could tell that it was good, and another time I would be blowing right through it, but I couldn't concentrate on anything. And it's been like that way with writing too.
Yeah, I was like in a bad situation where my like first draft of book 2 was due to my editor on March 31st. And like fortunately it was like mostly written like before COVID started. Like I was really just kind of going through and like sort of strengthening some subplots and themes and stuff. So it wasn't like a lot of like hard drafting I was having to do. But even just like doing that for those 2 weeks, it was horrible. It's like the worst. I was just like, is this any good? Like anything that I'm writing right now? I have no idea. And then like once I turned it in, my Heaven to Hoax came out like a week later, which was very exciting, but also like very distracting. And
yeah,
I really feel like it was May before I really like calmed down from my launch and got used to the fact that we apparently live in some sort of like dystopian hellscape now. And so I've been able to read a lot lately, which is good because what else am I gonna do? Oh, we're getting a lot of Lucy Parker love in the comments. I'm glad other people love her too.
I'm gonna have to read some of that.
No, like they're so good. I read them all. I read almost everything as an ARC because I'm a librarian, so I can get like an advanced copy of basically anything I want. I know. Not to brag or anything.
Get me Sarah J. Maas's new book.
Dude, I can't get that even. The last, like even librarians, I don't like, I'm like, do they even do ARCs for books? Like, I don't know. If they do, I don't know who gets them because we don't get them. It's like,
she probably isn't gonna do ARCs of that one, man.
Like, the last one of hers that I got an ARC for was the first Court of Thorns and Roses one. Like, I read that one as an ARC, and then I have like not even seen an ARC of any of her other stuff since then on like NetGalley or Edelweiss or anything, because like they don't need to. Everyone's gonna read it anyways. Did you read House of Earth and Blood?
I got it right here, and I've been trying it. There's just a lot of information, like right off the bat, and I found myself rereading the same paragraph over and over, and I thought, I'm going to put this down, and then maybe when the world isn't on fire in a few months, hopefully, it will absorb.
Yeah, I read that one, well, like in April. It was when I was doing my first round of revisions on book 2, and so I used it as like a carrot. So I would, if I worked for like for every hour I worked, I got to take a 20-minute break to like read a chapter of that book. But
you have a lot of self-control.
Yeah, it went better some days than others. I'm not gonna lie.
Was it good?
20 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I think about her, like, I think her books are just like so fun and just insanely addictive. And I also feel like if you like one of her books, like you're gonna like all of them kind of. They feel very like familiar and similar to me, not in a bad way, in a way that like, yeah, I like this about your previous book, so I like it a lot about this one too. But it was like the world building was kind of overwhelming because it's the first one in a series and it's just like holy moly. But I'm really excited to read the next one. I'm a little concerned I'm going to have forgotten who everyone is and like what all these random like magical creatures are by the time the next one comes out, but it's fine. I'll remember it. I always figure it out pretty quickly. So hey, Pumpkin.
Speaking of food, Sarah, have you been able to eat Deborah Rose's salted caramel apple cake? I have not, because I looked it up and you have to peel a bunch of apples and I'm really lazy. So I sent the recipe to my brother and sister-in-law and I begged them to make it for me. That's a lot better. If you can have somebody else make it for you, you probably should. And they said no, but I'm going to keep trying.
That's my philosophy with all baking. I don't know. Just someone else do it for me.
I don't want to make it.
I'm like not a good cook or baker. Like I do it, but I would much rather someone else do it for me. So fortunately, one of my best friends has gotten really into baking in the past few years. So like he'll try anything. So I'm like, okay, cool. We went to Portugal a couple years ago, and we came back, and he like started making he tried to make like custard tarts they have in Portugal, which is like very difficult to make. And I was like, this is excellent. I would never in a million years try to make this, but it's nice to have someone else make it for me. What, in your opinion? Oh, God.
It's our favorite topic.
I was going to say, oh, no, you don't realize what you have started. What, in your opinion, makes a rom-com as opposed to just a romance?
You have to laugh out loud, like, at least 3 times, I would say. It can't just be a romance that has, a little every now and then. Like, I want more than a chuckle.
Yes, and I mean, like, truly, we like probably should just give a TED talk about this since we feel so passionately about it. Like, I think people like if there's banter in a romance, they start calling it a rom-com, which is like a lot of romance has banter in it, which I love. Banter is literally my favorite thing about romance, but just because it has banter. Like sometimes banter is more kind of like sly and clever as opposed to like actually laugh out loud funny. And both of those things are good and right for different books, but it has to be funny. It can't just be kind of like, oh, look how witty this is. Like that's not a rom-com. It's just clever. Like it can be clever without being a rom-com. And I also think beyond like that, yeah, it should actually make you laugh out loud. Beyond that, I also think that like the humor should be kind of like baked into the premise itself. Like to me, if it's a rom-com, then the book wouldn't work without the humor. Like with both of our books, like the premises are kind of so ridiculous that like the humor is very like it's the kind of
they wouldn't work as serious books.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Just be like, wow, these people are like sociopaths.
She faked consumption and then she died.
Yeah, then she actually died. Yeah, so I think for it to be a rom-com, it has to be like the comedy has to be just like equally important to the romance, and that's why I think people get confused because there are a lot of like funny romances or romances that have humor that I wouldn't call a rom-com. And also, oh man, no one should ever ask me this question. Also, just because it has an illustrated cover, for the love of God, it does not make it a rom-com.
Well, a lot of romances, just no matter what they are, like they're just being called rom-coms, just
it's like interchangeably. Yeah, I think it's like a marketing tactic, which kind of makes sense. Like, because I think there are a lot of people who are.
Your cat.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, it's in my eye. I'm not crying. I'm not emotional about this.
I mean, if you were, I would not judge you. Like, I feel very emotional.
Calling them rom-coms and they're not.
Stop calling them all rom-coms. I mean, it makes sense. I think there are a lot of readers who are newer to the genre from the past few years who started reading romance because they were reading things that they called rom-coms. Like I had a friend of mine who read Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore from last year, and she texted me and she's like, I just read a really good Victorian rom-com. Give me the recommendations. And I was like, what book was it? And she told me, and I was like, I love that book. Would not call Bringing Down the Duke a rom-com. I would just call it a romance. Like, it's just a really good, original, like, Victorian romance novel. But I mean, you know, if it brings new people to the genre to appreciate, like, how great romance is, then I'm not going to complain too much. Well, I'm still going to complain, obviously.
I'm going to complain because I've heard people be like, I can't trust these books anymore, and I'm not going to try. And I don't believe that. I kind of call their bluff, but still.
Yeah.
Stay played.
My complaint is that now the like over branding of everything as a rom-com and the illustrated cover thing are like interlinked. Like, because both of our books have illustrated covers, which I think fits the tone of both books really well. But I get really thrown when I read a book that has an illustrated cover that ends up being like very heavy and emotional. And I mean, they're like really good books, but it's just like wasn't what I was expecting necessarily. I've had other people say they find it like jarring when illustrated cover books are like steamier than they're expecting, but that doesn't actually bother me because I feel like there are a lot of like pretty steamy illustrated cover books out there. For me, it's more like a tone thing. If like a book ends up being like really
somebody
heavy,
dies, you know?
Yeah, or just like, you know, someone has PTSD or they're dealing with kind of like a history of like, you know, they had an abusive relationship in the past, something like that. Like, these are all really important. Like, I'm glad that I love romance as a genre. I love that it tackles such like issues like this, and that it totally does not get enough credit for like all the smart books like that are touching on these things that are being written. But I still find it jarring when it's like a sunshiny cover with two little like cartoon people. I'm like, but that's not telling me what this book is going to be like. So oh, no one should ever ask this question ever again, like 20 minutes later. Oh, boy. Think another one. How are Naomi and Nicholas spending their quarantine? Well,
they are in their canoe hitting each other with oars.
I love it.
Just the whole time.
They do have a good setup, like their little house in the woods and everything. Like I would like to be quarantining at their house, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds pretty ideal.
Deborah is on the roof. She's trying to get into the chimney.
Probably. Let's see. Question. But don't you think there are so many romances now that have a lot of heavy issues involved? Books by Helen Huang and Abby Jimenez both deal with serious topics that are also romances. Yes, I'm not saying, sorry, let me clarify what I was saying. I'm not saying that like a romance shouldn't deal with a serious topic. I think that the genre has been doing that like as long as it's existed, basically. My specific complaint is more like when it's given a really like lighthearted sort of cartoony looking cover and
synopsis.
Yeah, and synopsis is kind of misleading, and it's called a rom-com, and then it just ends up being heavier. Like, usually I end up enjoying the book a lot regardless, but it's just like, as a reader, I find it, like, I like to know what I'm getting into, kind of. And I also think, like, I wonder about other readers, because I think I'm a pretty, like, educated reader by virtue of being an author and, like, you know, kind of being on book Twitter, so, like, hearing a lot about books, and being a librarian. So I feel like I'm probably like more informed going in than your average just like casual reader who's browsing at Barnes & Noble and picking something up. So I always think that if I'm sometimes being blindsided by the tone of these books, that like other readers probably are too. Which is not like to say that romance shouldn't deal with heavy topics. Like, I 100% think it should, and I think like and you can deal with heavy topics even in books that are funny and like light as well. I just have read some books with illustrated covers that have like blindsided me a little bit with like how like overall kind of like heavy the contents of the book have ended up being.
Yeah, because when you go into it, you kind of like pick for your mood the certain things to read at that time, and it can be a little bit upsetting if you purposely pick something that's really light and then it turns out to not be that way.
And like to be clarify further, like this is not to do with the authors at all. Like we have no power.
No.
like it's not the author's fault. it's like totally a marketing thing. And I get it because like obviously the past few years in romance have shown that like marketing these books this way works. Like look at how many wildly popular like rom-com illustrated cover books are out there. I just occasionally, or I wish we could figure out a way to like do illustrated covers that like aren't all so like light feeling, like let the like illustrated covers kind of have more emotional nuance almost as well, would be like another way to handle this. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts, but also
You know what? Speaking of that, I'm going to bring in one of my gripes, which is the fantasy covers are the bomb. And I would love to see fantasy covers go over into romance covers like that.
I would like more like fantasy romance in general, like that gets published by, because there's like fantasy that has like a lot of like romance in it, like Sarah J. Maas for example. But I want like fantasy romance being published by like romance imprints, which I think we're actually going to see some of, because I've seen several announcements like in the past few months for things that are like have like a sprinkling of magic.
Yes, I want to write one of those so bad.
Yeah, the like new the Rachel Hawkins one or whatever, I can't remember.
Yeah, the X-Hex.
Yeah, the X-Hex. And there was another one that was announced recently that was also like witchy, and I was like, yes, I am here for this. I'm really excited about this trend.
I want to get on that bandwagon immediately.
I had this idea for a fantasy rom-com that I like emailed my agent about this past winter, and she was like, yes, that, but I haven't actually started writing it yet. But like my first love was fantasy. I always thought I wanted to write a fantasy book, like growing up and even like into like high school and college, because all I read until I like discovered romance basically. So I always kind of like, I like the idea of combining the two.
I want to write a sci-fi one, but like it doesn't read like sci-fi, but it's sci-fi.
Let's see. Ooh, favorite trope. What's your favorite trope? And then we broke Sarah. She can't answer.
I mean, only one bed definitely has merits, but cinnamon rolls, the grumpy one is soft with the sunshine one.
You have to read Lucy Parker. I'm telling you, you're gonna love it.
And enemies to lovers, of course. Lovers to enemies to lovers.
Lovers to enemies to lovers. Yeah, I love enemies to lovers a lot. I really love marriage of convenience, or any kind of like forced proximity, like there's only one bed, or like they're
bodyguard.
Like on a Regency road trip where they're just holed up in that carriage all day for days on end, like anything like that. I'm here for it. Let's see. How was your querying process? I feel like mine is misleading, like because everyone has these horror stories, and mine was actually pretty easy. I only queried 5 agents before I got my agent. Spoiler alert, like I literally don't recommend doing what I did. Like I do nothing. I did research. I checked out like a copy of Writer's Market and went and looked for authors who write romance, and also tried, or agents who write romance. My agent, I actually included in my first like top tier group of the first 5 queries I sent out, because she is the agent for Sally Thorne, who wrote The Hating Game, which I love that book. And so when I read it back the year it came out, I think it was like 2016, I had started writing To Heaven to Hoax, but I hadn't finished it. But I like in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to query this same agent when I finish my book, because I think she and I have similar taste in books. So she was one of the first 5 agents I sent a query to, and I'd kind of like done those 5 and then paused, and I was going to do another batch a little later on, but then I like heard back from her and she wanted a full manuscript, so I sent it to her, and then she was like, this is delightful. We talked on the phone. So I don't know. That's not common. Usually people have like horrifying stories of querying like 50 plus people. So, and also like I knew nothing about what I was doing, so ignore me basically. I think my situation was unusual. What about you?
That was my experience for like everything I'd ever written prior to this one, and then this one, like I had no reason to think it would be any different. So I thought, I'm gonna shoot all these queries out there, I'm gonna get no's, and I'm just gonna write another book. I found my agent, Jennifer Grimaldi, on Writer's Digest, one of those sites, and it was a new agent. And I looked at her favorite books, what she wanted, and I thought, ooh, I think that we would get along. And I think she was probably in my top 5 that I sent out as well. And I heard back from her like within a week, I think, for a full. And then she got back to me a couple days later offering rep, and I was like, oh my God, it's never been like that before.
Yeah, I think since I wasn't on Twitter, I didn't realize how much like Twitter can be a useful tool when you're querying. Like all these agents have like manuscript wish lists on Twitter, which I definitely recommend checking those out. And also just kind of like take a look at who the agents are who represent a lot of your favorite authors who write stuff kind of similar to what you want to write. Because that's something that I've realized like after the fact is like, if I followed all of these authors on Twitter, like that I follow now, I like can think of like a bunch of like I can think of a list easily of like 10 agents that I would probably query first, including my own. But like I think my list would have been more intelligent and like that top 5, because I just feel like there are names that pop up over and over again who represent stuff that like I really love. So yeah, don't do as I say, not as I do. I was a little like wide-eyed baby deer. I knew nothing.
Yeah, when I got my agent, I had 7 Twitter followers, and I never used it because I was using an alternate troll account to do weird stuff. So I thought, okay, I should probably stay away from that one and like follow authors and do things legit now.
Yeah, I had like gotten it to like claim my name basically, but then I didn't I followed a couple. I've like just followed a bunch of like random authors that didn't actually check. I think before I got my agent, I hadn't tweeted in like 6 months or something. And so she asked me, she's like, "Are you on Twitter?" And I was like, I mean, kind of.
I wasn't on Instagram at the time either.
Oh, see, I Instagram is the only social media I actually enjoy, and it's the one where like I do it for some like book stuff now, but I also like most of my like actual like real life friends are on Instagram, so that's the one that I feel like I actually use for non-writing purposes as well as writing stuff. Whereas Twitter, like I would not be on there if it was not for book stuff.
I love Twitter. I always forget to post on Instagram.
I love you on Twitter, and you just randomly post like reaction shots to all these random people's tweets. I'm just like, Sarah, what are you doing?
I don't leave Twitter because I can be on my phone doing Twitter while I'm doing anything else, so I just stay there all the time.
Oh, let's see.
What is the first book that made you cry?
Oh God. The first one I can remember is my favorite childhood fantasy series, which is The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander, which are like based on Welsh mythology. One of them won the Newbery back in like the 60s. They're wonderful. The last book in that one, The High King, made me cry a lot when I was like 8 or 9 and read it. And I still cry. The last time I reread it, which was when I was, I don't know, probably like in library school, maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, I'm talking like fetal position on my couch, like weeping. So it still does it for me. What about you?
It was probably Walk Two Moons by Sharon Creech.
Oh, that's a good one. I reread that one also in library school, I think, because I was reading a bunch of the like Newbery winners.
I love Sharon Creech.
Yeah, she's still writing. I like have just read one of her books like last year. Those were really good ones. Let's see, how many unpublished and half finished books do you have? I have two full ones that are unpublished. One like that's 50% completed, and then like 10 that are like 2 chapters.
I have no idea. For unfinished ones, it's a lot. It's probably like at least 30. And then for fully finished ones, also a lot. I just won't say how many. I will say that I've written 2 books since I wrote You Deserve Each Other.
So one of them is your book 2.
Yeah. The other one, I don't know. It may come out someday. It was fun though. That was probably the most fun I've ever had writing a book. It's bananas.
It's hard. I found it hard. Everyone talks about how book 2 is hard, like after your real book 2 after you get published. And I didn't find my book 2 that hard because I wrote most of it before I got my book deal for To Have and to Hoax. So
Yeah.
I wrote it when I had my agent, but not when I had my deal. So I really was like, who knows if this will ever get published? Like, since it's a
What
spin-off.
everybody says to do.
Yeah, and it really so I didn't feel pressure. Whereas this summer, in between rounds of revisions, I've been trying to write a book 3, and so this is the first thing I've tried to write since I really knew that there was a decent chance someone might read it someday, and it has been horrifyingly awful. So
yeah, it's bad.
yeah, so I'm having that kind of book 2 experience everyone talks about. I'm just having it delayed for book 3 because I didn't really have it for book 2, and it's awful. I'm actually writing 2 or 3 things at once right now because I'm getting so stressed out that this is not going to be publishable, that I'm feeling the need to hedge my bet. So, and then when I get bored of one, I'm bouncing to the other. I don't know, it's a mess. It's not going great at the moment, I gotta be honest.
Oh, I fully had a breakdown over book 2. It was rough. I tried multiple books and none of them were working out, and I was like, oh my god, because I figured after we went on submission with You Deserve Each Other, I'd probably have 6 months or so to write it, but my editor Margot offered immediately, so I didn't have time.
Yeah, it's rough. I did not fully appreciate how terrible it would be writing something, actually feeling some sort of external pressure rather than just from yourself. So I
thought I would be exempt from it.
Yeah,
I've written so many books. I was like, I don't care. I've written a lot.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I was like, everyone talks about this, but I really feel like they're overreacting, and it can't really be that bad. But my experience for the past 2 months has been, it's not good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sarah, please expand on your alternate Twitter account. Do you still have your troll Twitter account?
I think I deleted it.
No. This is very disappointing.
It would have been, yeah, I stopped using it.
But so you can just feel your trolling.
You
still troll people from your regular account now.
I think that if you were to randomly come across it, even though it doesn't have my name on it or my picture, if you follow my tweets, you'd probably be like, this looks like it might be Sarah's alternate account.
Oh, I love that.
Well, thank you both so much for doing this. What a great conversation. I think it was a lot of fun for everybody, and we really appreciate you doing it.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you everybody for coming. Again, you can buy the books on belmontbooks.com, and we hope to see you at the next event. Thanks everyone, have a good night.
Bye guys.
Bye.
Thanks again.